There's an animal that has been glowing this whole time.
Yeah.
Like glowing in the dark. A bright electric blue-green.
Under our noses.
Right. And we have known about this animal for over 2 centuries. We've studied it, we've poked it, we put it in biology textbooks, and in all that time, not one single person ever bothered to turn off the lights and check.
It really is, it's the ultimate biological blind spot. You know, we look at something every single day and never actually see it.
Okay, hi. Welcome to this deep dive. Come here, sit down, pull up a chair, put your drink somewhere safe, because honestly, you are going to want both hands free for this one. I want you to treat this less like a science lecture and more like we are sitting down for dinner table gossip, because I am absolutely obsessed with what we are looking at today. You know the platypus, right?
The little Australian oddity, yeah.
That's the one. It looks like a duck and a beaver got together and made some deeply questionable decisions. It's got the flat rubber bill, the webbed feet, the furry little body, the tail like a paddle. For most of us, it's just a meme. It's the animal where we joke that nature was just, throwing spare parts together on a Friday afternoon and calling it a week.
Right, a biological joke.
Yeah.
That has basically been the popular consensus since the exact moment it was discovered.
And I thought I knew everything about it.
Yeah.
I did not know anything about it, because the platypus is not a meme. The platypus is a glitch.
A glitch.
Yeah, like the universe was building animals, hit a critical bug in the software, and just shipped it anyway, just decided not to fix it. In this deep dive, we are going to stack a series of impossibilities about this animal, things that make absolutely zero sense. And then I promise you, we are going to drop a massive twist at the end that completely flips our entire understanding of this animal and, honestly, of ourselves.
And, well, to get to that twist, we really have to start with the glow. Because the glowing perfectly illustrates our fundamental arrogance when it comes to the natural world.
Let's unpack the glow, because this is where my brain first short-circuited. So in normal daylight, a platypus is brown, just mud brown, wet dog brown.
Very drab.
Literally the most forgettable color on the planet.
Yeah.
But back in 2020, scientists shined a UV blacklight on one. I want you to picture, like, the purple party light that makes your white socks look radioactive at a bowling alley.
Oh, yeah.
They shined that invisible UV light onto a platypus, and the entire animal lit up swimming pool, mermaid green.
It's wild. The fur basically acts like a neon sign. So what's happening is a process called fluorescence. The dense fur is absorbing that invisible, high-energy ultraviolet light, and instead of just, reflecting it back, the chemical structure of the fur physically alters the light.
Okay.
It drops the energy level and spits it back out into the visible spectrum as this vibrant, glowing green.
I cannot get past the sheer absurdity of human observation here. I mean, we have known about the platypus since 1799. We invented cars, airplanes, the internet, and the blacklight itself. And for over 200 years, nobody thought to just run a blacklight over one. How does an oversight that massive actually happen?
Well, the 2020 discovery was a complete literal accident.
Wait, really?
Yeah, nobody was funding a targeted high-tech platypus expedition. A scientist was just standing in his backyard at night, shining a UV light on moss, just looking at the green fuzzy stuff on rocks as a quirky hobby.
Naturally.
Right? And while he's out there, a flying squirrel lands at his bird feeder. He happens to hit the squirrel with the purple light, and the animal turns hot bubblegum pink.
A pink flying squirrel.
Highlighter pink.
I feel like that's a whole separate deep dive we need to do.
Oh, absolutely. But it was the spark that set everything off. So the scientists get absolutely hooked. They're suddenly looking at each other, wondering, what else is secretly glowing in the dark?
So what did they do?
They march into the Field Museum in Chicago, and they just start opening up taxidermy drawers in the mammal department, going right down the line with this purple flashlight.
Oh, my gosh.
They pull open the platypus drawer, click the light on, and staring back at them is this electric green glow.
Imagine being the person opening that drawer. You would physically scream. But honestly, this tracks perfectly with our entire history with this animal. We have consistently refused to take it seriously. I was reading about the very first time a European scientist encountered one, and he didn't just misunderstand it. He thought it was a literal malicious prank.
Oh, yeah. If you look at the historical context of 1799, exotic animal specimens were pouring into London from the colonies, and there was a very real, very profitable black market for fake monsters.
Right.
Taxidermists in Asia would stitch the top half of a monkey to the bottom half of a fish and sell it to sailors as a mermaid. So when George Shaw, an English naturalist, received this dried, stiff pelt from Australia with mammal fur and a duck's beak...
His immediate assumption was fraud.
Exactly.
Total fraud.
Which, honestly, to be fair to George, is a highly logical reaction to seeing a platypus.
Yeah, it is. He was so incredibly certain it was a fake that he grabbed a pair of scissors and started violently cutting into the fur around the neck and the base of the bill, hunting for the stitches.
Wow.
He was aggressively digging for the seam where the fake parts were glued or sewn together.
But there were no stitches. It was just a real impossible thing. And my favorite detail from the source material is that this exact specimen, the one George Shaw attacked, is still sitting in a box in the Natural History Museum in London today. You can still see the physical scissor cuts on the pelt where he tried to expose the hoax.
It forces you to pause, like to consider how completely we underestimated this creature. We treated it like a novelty item, just a joke.
But the joke was entirely on us, because while we were taking scissors to it and laughing at its rubber beak, the platypus was secretly heavily armed.
Heavily armed.
We think of it as this soft, funny little bath toy of an animal. But the physical reality of the platypus is highly dangerous.
Very dangerous. But the danger is hidden really well. On the back ankles of the male platypus, there is a tiny hollow spur, a little spike. It looks like a curved fingernail, maybe half an inch long, almost entirely harmless at first glance. But that spur is directly connected to a venom gland in the leg.
Venom, a mammal with venom. I went down a massive rabbit hole trying to understand this, because mammals are supposed to be soft and cuddly.
Right.
We do fur, we do warm blood. We do not do venom. That is supposed to be strictly for snakes, spiders, and like the occasional weird fish.
It's an incredibly rare trait for a mammal.
Okay.
And the terrifying part isn't just the presence of the venom, but the sheer overwhelming potency of it. You might assume, given it's a small animal the size of a house cat, that a strike might sting, like a bad bee sting.
Sure.
The reality is that the pain is catastrophic.
The accounts of this pain are harrowing. I read that hospital-grade painkillers, the absolute strongest narcotics we have, the ones doctors say for extreme emergencies like morphine, they do absolutely nothing to a platypus sting. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. Morphine shuts down pain receptors in the brain. How can a venom just ignore the brain's off switch?
Well, this is where the biochemistry is fascinating. Morphine and other opioids work on the central nervous system. They act like a mute button on the brain's switchboard, stopping the pain signals from registering.
Right.
Platypus venom doesn't care about the switchboard. It contains a highly complex cocktail of proteins that directly attack the peripheral nociceptors.
The local ones.
Exactly, the actual pain receptors right at the site of the wound. The venom forces those local receptors to fire constantly and violently.
So the brain's mute button doesn't work because the alarm itself is broken and just screaming locally in the arm or the leg.
That is the perfect way to look at it. The venom causes profound hyperalgesia, which is an extreme sensitivity to pain. To give you an idea of the severity, doctors literally have to use regional anesthesia.
Wait, like nerve blockers?
Yes, they have to inject nerve blockers to completely numb the victim's entire limb, exactly like they are prepping them for major amputation surgery, just to make the screaming stop.
Oh my God. And even after the initial strike, the pain can linger for weeks, sometimes months. There's a documented case of a victim who is a military veteran, and he went on record comparing the pain of a platypus sting to being hit by war shrapnel.
Wow.
I want you to picture that. That is exactly like finding out your family golden retriever has been hiding a switchblade in his paw this whole time.
Yeah.
You go to pet him, and he just takes you out.
It completely shatters the illusion of the helpless, goofy animal. It demands respect.
So it glows like a neon sign under blacklight, and it has poison fists that laugh at our strongest medicine. But the external defenses are just the surface. It's everyday survival. The way it just exists and reproduces in the wild breaks every single rule of what a mammal is supposed to be.
Oh, it challenges the very definition we teach in biology class. Because by every metric, it is a mammal, it is warm-blooded, it has a fur coat, it breathes air, but it does not give birth to live young.
Right.
It lays eggs, small, leathery eggs, much closer to what you would see from a reptile or a bird.
A warm, furry animal that curls up in a dirt burrow and lays eggs. That alone is wild. But then I was thinking about the next step. The babies hatch, and they need milk because, again, it's a mammal. But I looked at diagrams of the platypus anatomy, and the mother doesn't have the standard plumbing for that. She has no nipples.
Right on.
So how on earth is she feeding these newly hatched babies?
She sweats the milk.
She sweats the milk. I had to read that sentence 3 times in the source material.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but the mechanism makes sense if you look at the evolution of mammalian glands. Nipples are actually a relatively recent evolutionary delivery system.
Okay.
The platypus utilizes specialized mammary glands that are located just beneath the skin on her abdomen. These glands are essentially highly modified sweat or sebaceous glands.
So it just leaks out.
Yeah, when it's time to nurse, the milk simply oozes out through the pores in her skin, cooling on her belly and matting her fur.
And the tiny blind babies just lap it up directly off her stomach. So the mom is basically a warm, leaking juice box for her kids.
A leaking juice box. Yeah.
It is just absolute biological chaos. But I haven't even brought up the most iconic part of its body yet. The face. The duckbill.
Oh.
Because my understanding is that the bill is not a mouth for chewing.
Not primarily, no. It is an incredibly sophisticated sensory antenna.
Okay, explain that.
Well, when a platypus dives into the muddy rivers and murky creeks where it lives to hunt for freshwater shrimp or crayfish, it doesn't use its eyes to look for them. In fact, the moment it submerges, a muscular fold of skin completely clamps down, covering its eyes.
Whoa!
It simultaneously seals its ears and its nostrils shut.
So it hunts completely blind. Deaf, blind, and holding its breath in pitch black, muddy water. How does it not just crash into rocks and starve?
It navigates and hunts entirely through a process called electroreception. Every living creature, like a shrimp hiding in the mud or a fish swimming by, gives off microscopic electrical impulses. When a muscle twitches, or even when a heart simply beats, it generates a faint electrical field.
From just a heartbeat.
Just a heartbeat. And the platypus's leathery bill is packed with tens of thousands of specialized sensory cells. Some are mechanoreceptors that feel physical ripples in the water, but others are electroreceptors that detect those unimaginably faint electrical heartbeats.
So it physically feels electricity with its face.
Yes.
I was reading about how it processes those signals,
Yeah.
and it's like a built-in weather radar.
Yeah.
Like the electrical pulse from a hidden shrimp's heartbeat travels through the water instantly, like a flash of lightning.
Right.
Then, the physical ripple of the shrimp moving hits the bill a microsecond later, like a crack of thunder.
That's a great way to put it. The platypus's brain calculates the time difference between the electrical lightning and the physical thunder to pinpoint the exact distance and location of the prey hidden deep in the mud. It maps a three-dimensional grid of its surroundings in total darkness.
I want you to really think about that. The dad hunts for dinner, using his face as a metal detector, while the mom sweats milk under her stomach for her egg-hatched babies. Tell me this thing is from Earth, because if its physical body is this much of a chaotic mashup, the underlying blueprint, its actual DNA, is fundamentally incomparable to anything else on this planet.
The genetics of the platypus might be the most staggering part of the entire animal.
Really?
Oh, yeah. If we look at sex chromosomes, the genetic instruction cards that dictate whether an embryo develops as male or female, we see a very clear standard. Almost every mammal on Earth, humans included, uses a very simple, elegant two-card system.
You get 2 cards. A combination of X and Y. You and I, you listening to this, our dogs, our cats, we were all running on a basic, boring 2-piece starter kit.
Well, the platypus does not use 2 cards. The platypus uses 10.
10. I saw that number and genuinely assumed it was a typo in the research. 10 sex chromosomes.
10. A male platypus carries 5 X chromosomes and 5 Y chromosomes.
Wow.
It is the only animal on the planet with this specific, wildly complex genetic architecture. And what perplexed geneticists for years was the mechanics of cell division.
Like, how does it not just turn into a mess?
Exactly. When a male platypus produces sperm cells, he has to perfectly divide those 10 chromosomes so that each sperm gets exactly half, either 5 X's to make a female or 5 Y's to make a male. If they just floated around randomly, the genetic instructions would become a scrambled, unviable mess.
So how do they not get scrambled? I read about the
Okay.
structure they form, and it sounded like a microscopic dance routine.
It basically is. During meiosis, which is the process of cell division, these 10 chromosomes have to physically link together to ensure they segregate correctly, they grab onto each other end to end, forming a giant alternating chain.
Right.
An X connects to a Y, which connects to an X, and so on, until they form a massive ring.
Like a 10-card conga line.
A molecular conga line. They hold hands, align themselves perfectly, and then the chain breaks cleanly down the middle, separating the male and female instruction sets with absolute precision.
While you and I are coasting on our little 2-card starter kit, the platypus is playing 5D chess with a deck of tarot cards, blindfolded, and somehow winning every single time.
It's incredible.
It is the biggest biological flex I have ever heard. But this brings us to the wall. We have stacked all these impossible, superpower-like traits. The venom, the juice box sweating, the electrical face radar, the 10-chromosome conga line. How did it get this way? To answer that, we have to circle back to where we started. We have to talk about the glow.
The glow is the key to understanding the bigger picture here.
Okay, I'm going to lean in here, and I'm going to confess something to you, the listener, because we are sitting at the gossip table, and we do not lie to each other. I looked deep into the research on that magnificent electric green mermaid glow. And the twist of this deep dive is that glow might not mean anything.
Right. The scientific community is currently engaged in a heavy debate over this, but there is a very robust argument that the fluorescence serves absolutely no evolutionary purpose.
Explain the counter-evidence to me, because finding this out broke my heart a little bit.
I get that. The initial wave of excitement in 2020 came from museum specimens. The scientists opened those taxidermy drawers in Chicago and saw that blinding, vibrant green. But we have to factor in the preservation process. Those are dead, dry pelts that have been handled for decades. They are steeped in historical preserving chemicals, many of which naturally fluoresce under UV light. Furthermore, the physics of light absorption means that dry, pale fur naturally lights up much brighter than wet, living fur.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. When researchers subsequently went out into the field and shined UV lights on live platypuses swimming in actual Australian rivers, the glow was, well, it was present, but it was drastically fainter.
It was a massive letdown. And it turns out a lot of normal things just naturally glow under blacklight without it being a superpower.
Countless things. Think of your teeth at that bowling alley. Or a plain white cotton t-shirt. If you pour a glass of tonic water and hit it with a UV light, it glows spectacularly bright blue because of the quinone in the liquid. The tonic water isn't glowing to communicate with other drinks, or to camouflage itself, or to hunt. It is simply a byproduct of its chemical makeup.
So for the platypus, it's highly likely that it's just a side effect of having pale, dense keratin in its fur that happens to absorb UV light and reflect it back. It's glowing for the exact same reason your socks glow at a party.
By accident.
An optical accident.
Basically a biological glitch.
But here is where my entire worldview flipped. If the glow is just a glitch, a random byproduct, and maybe the platypus itself isn't a weird, broken animal designed on a dare.
And this is the paradigm shift that completely reframes the platypus. For 200 years, we have looked at it as a modern animal that is somehow failing to be a normal mammal.
Yeah.
We judge it against bears and dogs and humans. But if you look at the evolutionary timeline, the platypus lineage, the monotremes, split off from the rest of the mammalian family tree over 200 million years ago.
200 million years. That is an almost unfathomable amount of time. That is pre-T-Rex.
Long before the Tyrannosaurus rex existed, the ancestors of the platypus were walking around during the Triassic period, before the continents had even fully separated into the shapes we know today.
It's crazy.
They survived the asteroid impact that wiped out the dinosaurs. They survived the dust clouds and the ice. The platypus is a rough sketch of the very first mammals to ever walk the earth.
Oh my God. So the egg laying, the sweating milk onto the stomach, the venomous spurs, that is not some weird, chaotic, modern mutation.
That is the baseline. Deep in our evolutionary past, our mammalian ancestors likely laid eggs. They hadn't evolved specialized nipples yet, so they secreted milk through their skin glands. Venom was likely a very common defensive trait for early small mammals desperately trying to survive in a hostile world dominated by massive predatory reptiles.
So what does this all mean? It means the platypus isn't glitching. It's not the weird new redesign that nature messed up. We are the redesign.
ER!
We are the update with the sanded down edges and the boring 2-card starter kit. The platypus is the 200-million-year-old original code, still running entirely unchanged.
It is a living fossil in the truest sense of the term. It holds the fundamental blueprint for what a mammal was when mammals first stepped onto the evolutionary stage.
Wow.
Over millions of years, the rest of the mammalian family tree updated. We lost the venom, we lost the electrosensory capabilities, we internalized our reproduction to protect our young, we streamlined our sex chromosomes down to 2. The platypus just looked at its original loadout, realized it was perfectly adapted to its environment, and kept what worked.
I want you to picture something with me. Imagine a quiet, muddy creek in Australia. It's dusk. The water is the color of strong tea. It's completely murky and still. And a brown, plain, totally forgettable animal swims up to the surface. Its eyes are tightly closed. Its ears are closed. It's just reading the microscopic electrical currents in the water with its face. doing exactly what its ancestors did before birds or flowers even existed on this planet.
It is hunting and surviving the exact same way it did in the shadow of the dinosaurs.
And the whole time, under a light it cannot see, in a color it will never even know it has, it is quietly glowing in the dark. It was always glowing. We just never thought to look.
And you know, the evolutionary implications of that original code leave us with a really fascinating thread to pull on.
Yeah.
If the platypus represents the 200-million-year-old original rough draft of a mammal packed with lethal venom, electrosensory faces, and wild, tangled DNA, what kind of incredible, bizarre superpowers did our ancient human ancestors possess that evolution eventually edited out over millions of years just to make us so incredibly normal?
I am going to be thinking about that all week. Our boring, non-venomous lives. Thank you for falling down this rabbit hole with us. If your brain is as wonderfully broken as mine is right now, do not sit with this alone. Send this deep dive to a friend immediately. Tell them about the glowing venom duck.